The day the world looked AWAOINO, one noticed it first. Not the parents rushing past the school gates with coffee cups in hand. Not the teachers standing by the entrance, distracted by their phones and schedules. Not even the security guard, who had learned over the years to see noise as background and pain as inconvenience. But someone was watching, and what he saw would change lives. Forever, Ethan Hale sat alone on the cold stone steps, near the back of the playground. His backpack clutched tight against his chest like a shield. His legs, thin and uncooperative, trembled as he tried to adjust himself. The metal braces strapped to his calves caught the morning light, reflecting it in sharp flashes, tiny beacons that announced his difference to the world. He hated those braces, not because they hurt, though sometimes they did, but because they made him visible, and visibility, he had learned, came with a price. Hey, robot boy. The voice cut through the air like a blade. Ethan's fingers tightened around the straps of his backpack. He didn't look up. Looking up always made it worse. A shadow fell over him. Then another, and another. 3 boys, all taller, all louder, all cruel in the careless way only teenagers could be cruel without even needing a reason. Why you always sitting like that? One of them sneered. You charging up or something? Laughter erupted, sharp, mean, unapologetic. Ethan swallowed hard. His throat burned. He had promised that today he wouldn't cry. Crying only made them happier. I just want to be left alone, he said quietly. The words barely escaped his lips before a hand shoved his shoulder. His brace scraped against the stone. Pain shot up his leg. Did you hear that? Another boy said, mocking. Robot boy wants to be alone. The third boy leaned closer, his breath hot and sour. Maybe if your dad bought you a normal body instead of fancy toys, you wouldn't be like this. Something broke inside Ethan, not loudly, not dramatically. It was the quiet kind of breaking, the kind that leaves pieces behind forever. Across the street, inside the back seat of a black luxury sedan, a man watched. Richard Hale didn't usually come to Ethan's school unannounced. Meetings, investments, boardrooms, those were his world. Glass towers, power lunches, deals worth more than most people's lifetimes. But today, a meeting had been canceled, and for reasons he didn't fully understand yet. He had told his driver to stop from behind the tinted window. Richard saw his son, his brilliant, gentle, painfully kind son being surrounded. His hand froze on the door handle. His first instinct was rage, the kind of rage that had helped him build an empire from nothing, the kind that whispered, "End this now." But something held him back, because this wasn't the first time. And stepping in again wouldn't teach Ethan how to survive in a world that seemed determined to break him, so Richard stayed and watched and hated himself for it. Give me your bag, the demand snapped. Ethan back to the moment. What? He whispered. The boy grabbed the strap and yanked. Ethan lost his balance. His body betrayed him. As it often did, he fell. The sound of his brace hitting the ground echoed across the yard. Laughter exploded. Someone kicked the bag away. Oops, the boy said. Guess your legs malfunctioned? Ethan tried to push himself up, his arms shaking. His palms scraped against the rough ground. That was when it happened. A voice, clear, sharp, unafraid. Hey. The laughter stopped. The boys turned. So did Ethan. A girl stood a few feet away. She was black, tall for her age, with tightly coiled hair pulled back into a simple ponytail. Her backpack hung from one shoulder. Her eyes, dark and steady, burned with something the boys weren't used to seeing. Authority, not the kind that came from adults, the kind that came from conviction. What do you think you're doing? She asked. One of the boys scoffed. Mind your business. She took a step closer. It is my business, she said. The moment you decided to act like cowards in public, the word hit them harder than any shove could have. Cowards. The tallest boy laughed, but there was uncertainty in it now. You gonna do something about it? She didn't flinch. I already am. She walked past them, past them, knelt beside Ethan. "You okay?" she asked gently. No one had asked him that before, not while it was happening. Ethan nodded, though his eyes burned. "I think so." She reached for his backpack and handed it back to him. Her hands were steady. "Careful. You don't deserve this," she said quietly. "None of this." The boys shifted behind her. "Get lost," one muttered. She stood up slowly and turned, her gaze hardened. "You think strength is hurting someone who can't fight back?" she said. "That's not strength. That's fear." The tallest boy's face reddened. "You don't know anything." "I know enough," she replied. "And I know this: if you touch him again, I will make sure everyone knows who you really are." Beat, then another. Silence stretched. Finally, one of the boys scoffed and stepped back. "Whatever." They walked away, throwing insults over their shoulders, but weaker now, hollow. Ethan stared at the girl, stunned. "Why? Why did you do that?" he asked. She smiled softly. "Because someone should have done it for me once." Before he could ask what she meant, the bell rang. She slung her backpack over her shoulder. "I'm Maya," she said. "You don't have to sit alone anymore, okay?" Then she turned and walked away, leaving behind a boy whose world had just shifted. Across the street, Richard Hale felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. It wasn't anger, it was awe. That girl hadn't known who Ethan was, hadn't known who he was. She hadn't stepped in for money, or status, or reward. She had stepped in because it was right. "Richard, open the car door, sir," the driver asked. "Find out who she is," Richard said quietly. "Everything," as the car pulled away. Richard didn't notice the figure standing near the fence, a teacher who had seen the confrontation from afar, or the look on her face, because she recognized the boys and she knew their families, and she knew what happened next would not be simple, not at all. Asterisk, the price of doing what's right. Maya didn't feel heroic walking into the building. She felt watched, not in the imaginary way people sometimes felt when they'd done something bold, but in a real, prickling way, like a spotlight had clicked on behind her and refused to turn off. The hallway buzzed with the usual morning noise. Lockers slamming, sneakers squeaking, laughter rising and falling like waves. But as Maya moved through it, she caught little shifts, conversations pausing, heads turning, eyes flicking away too. Late whispers followed her like shadows. "That's her. Girl who got in Tyson's face? She's crazy or stupid." Maya kept her chin high anyway, because she'd learned something early in life. When people want you to feel small, they'll try to shrink you with noise first. She refused to shrink. Still, as she passed the trophy case, her stomach tightened. She didn't have a big family name here. She didn't have money or influence. Her mom worked double shifts at a rehab center. Their apartment's heater was stubborn, their fridge always half full, their bills always one late payment away from becoming a disaster. And the boys she had embarrassed? They were the kind of boys whose parents didn't worry about bills. They worried about reputation. Ethan sat in his first period class like he was trying to disappear into the desk. His fingers tapped softly against the edge of his notebook, a nervous rhythm. He kept looking toward the door every time it opened. His shoulders jumped. When Maya finally walked in, his breath released like he'd been holding it all morning. She slid into the empty seat beside him, like it belonged to her. "Hey," she said, casual. "You good?" Ethan nodded, then shook his head, then nodded again, unsure how to answer. "You don't have to babysit me," he whispered. Maya leaned closer, voice low. "I'm not babysitting. I'm choosing." That word landed in Ethan's chest like warmth. Choosing. Nobody chose him. People tolerated him, pitied him, avoided him, but they didn't choose him. Maya opened her notebook and added, almost as an afterthought, "Also, I like your drawing." Ethan froze. "You saw that?" Maya pointed with her pencil. On the corner of his paper, Ethan had been sketching a tiny city skyline, sharp lines, careful shadows. It was beautiful, detailed, alive. Ethan's cheeks warmed. "It's nothing. It's not nothing, Maya said firm. It's talent. Ethan looked down, swallowing the sudden lump in his throat. For the first time that day, he smiled. But across the room, Tyson Creed leaned back in his chair. Watching Tyson didn't look like trouble at first glance. He wore clean sneakers, a varsity jacket, and a smile that teachers interpreted as charm. His father was the head of the school board's fundraising committee. His mother hosted charity galas and posed for local magazines. Tyson had grown up learning the world, had two kinds of people, those who mattered, and those who were meant to move out of the way, Maya. Daniels hadn't moved, and that made him furious. He leaned toward the boys beside him, Logan Pierce and Jace Murray. You see her sitting with him? Tyson murmured. Logan snorted. She thinks she's some kind of superhero. Jace's eyes narrowed. We should have taken her phone and recorded her crying yesterday. That would have shut her up. Tyson's smile widened, but it wasn't friendly. Nah, not yet. He drummed his fingers on the desk, calm like he was planning a game. We're going to teach her something, he said softly. Something she doesn't forget. Like lunch. Maya sat with Ethan at a corner table. Not because she was hiding, but because Ethan looked like the cafeteria was a battlefield and he didn't have armor. Maya unwrapped her sandwich and slid half of it onto his tray. You don't have to. Ethan started. Yes, I do, Maya said. Because cafeteria food is a crime, and I'm not letting you suffer alone. Ethan chuckled, a small sound, like it surprised him. They talked slowly at first. Mostly Maya carrying the conversation, Ethan answering in cautious pieces. But once she asked about his sketches, he opened up. Like a door creaking into light. I want to be an architect someday, he admitted. Design buildings that make people feel safe. Maya's eyes softened. That's beautiful. Stupid, Ethan muttered. With my legs. I can't even. Maya cut him off gently. Stop. Don't talk about yourself like that. Ethan looked at her startled. Maya's voice lowered. You didn't choose your body. But you can choose what you become. And from what I've seen, you're already more than they'll ever be. Ethan stared at his tray, breathing hard. Why do you care? Maya's face flickered. For a moment, something heavy passed behind her eyes, something old. Then she said quietly, because I know what it feels like when people decide you're worth less before you even open your mouth. He just nodded like he understood. They ate, they laughed, they almost forgot the world was watching. Almost it happened as they stood up. Maya lifted her backpack, then froze. It felt wrong, heavier than it should. Her fingers tightened. Instinct telling her to check, she unzipped it. Her notebooks were there. Her pencil case, but her wallet gone. Her bus pass gone. Her mom's old silver necklace, the one her mother had given her on her 13th birthday. Whispering, this was your grandma's. It's our strength. Gone. Maya's blood went cold. Ethan noticed her face. What is it? Maya's voice barely worked. Someone took my necklace. Ethan's eyes widened. What? When? Maya looked around, and that's when she saw them. Tyson. Logan. JACE'd across the cafeteria, leaning by the exit doors. Laughing, Tyson held something between his fingers. A silver chain. Maya's necklace. He raised it like a trophy. Then he smirked and slipped it into his pocket. Maya's. The entire body went still. Ethan grabbed her sleeve. Don't, Maya. Don't go over there. Please. But Maya was already walking, not rushing, not screaming, walking with the slow, controlled fury of someone who had learned to survive. She stopped in front of Tyson. His friends spread out behind him like backup. Tyson tilted his head. You lost, Daniels? Maya's voice was steady, but her hands trembled. Give it back. Tyson's eyebrows lifted. Give what back? Maya's gaze didn't waver. My necklace. You stole it. The laughter behind him grew. Tyson leaned in. Prove it. Maya's jaw tightened. That necklace belonged to my grandmother. It's engraved on the back. Tyson's expression shifted just for a second. A flicker of surprise, then his smile returned, sharper. "Oh yeah," he said. "What does it say?" Maya's throat tightened, but she forced the words out. "It says, hold the line." Tyson pulled the chain out again, dangled it in front of her face, then slowly he turned it over, and his smile faded because the engraving was there. Hold the line? Maya saw it, and relief hit her so hard she almost swayed. Then Tyson's eyes darkened. He didn't like being proven wrong. He didn't like being cornered. So he did what bullies always did when they lost a battle of truth. He changed the rules. Tyson lifted the necklace higher. "Maybe you should have held on to it better," he said. Casually, Maya reached for it. Tyson stepped back. Then, with a sudden flick of his wrist, he tossed the necklace over her shoulder. It arced through the air. For a split second, Maya's heart leaped. Then she realized he hadn't thrown it to her. He'd thrown it past her, toward the trash cans. Maya spun around just in time to see the silver chain land on top of soggy cafeteria leftovers. Milk cartons, ketchup, crumpled. Napkins, her mother's gift, buried in garbage. A sound escaped Maya that she didn't recognize. Half gasp, half growl. Tyson's voice came from behind her, sweet like poison. "Go on," he said. "Pick it up." Cafeteria had gone quiet. Every student watching, every adult pretending not to. Ethan stood frozen a few feet away, eyes wide with panic. Maya stared at the trash, her hands clenched. She could feel humiliation trying to wrap around her like chains. Tyson wanted her to kneel, to lower herself to be the show. Maya's chest rose and fell. Then she heard her mother's voice in her memory. "Our strength isn't in what we own, baby. It's in what we refuse to become." Maya stepped toward the trash, not to obey, but to reclaim. She reached into the mess without flinching and pulled the necklace out. Milk dripping off the chain. A few kids snickered nervously. Tyson smiled, satisfied, but Maya didn't look broken. She looked dangerous. She held the necklace up, let the chain hang wet and shining. Then she turned to Tyson. Her voice was low. "You're going to regret that." Tyson laughed. "Sure, okay." Maya wiped the necklace on her sleeve, eyes never leaving him. Behind her, Ethan whispered, "Maya, please." Tyson's smile sharpened again. "I'm not the one you should worry about," he said softly. Maya frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Tyson leaned closer, so only she could hear. "My dad's on the school board," he murmured. "And you're about to learn something, Daniels." His eyes flicked down to the necklace, then back up. "Cold. People like you don't win." Maya's spine stiffened. Ethan stepped forward, voice trembling. "Leave her alone." Tyson looked at Ethan like he was dirt that had learned to speak. Then Tyson's gaze slid past them toward the cafeteria entrance. A man had just walked. In tall, broad-shouldered, expensive suit, eyes like steel, the entire room seemed to shift. Even the teachers straightened. Tyson's face changed. Not fear exactly, recognition, and something like calculation. Maya turned to see who it was. The man's gaze locked onto Ethan first, softened instantly. Then the gaze moved to Maya and hardened. Not with anger, with decision. Richard Hale stepped forward, his voice cutting through the silence. "Who," he said calmly, "threw that necklace into the trash?" The cafeteria didn't breathe. Tyson's throat bobbed. Logan and Jace exchanged looks. Maya stared at the man, confused. Ethan's voice cracked. "Dad." Maya's heart slammed. "Dad. As in..." Tyson's smirk returned like armor. He lifted his chin, pretending he didn't suddenly feel cornered. Richard Hale took one more step forward. His calm was terrifying because it looked like restraint, not weakness. And then Richard said something that made Maya's stomach drop. "Because the next person who lies to me," he said, eyes sweeping the room, "is going to discover what power really looks like." Tyson's father's influence had ruled this school for years, but now a billionaire had entered the room, and everyone could sense it. *A. Storm had arrived. When power meets turf to silence after. Tyson raised his hand was heavy enough to crush lungs. Every eye in the cafeteria snapped between. Like the room itself couldn't decide which kind of power it should fear more. Tyson pointed straight at Maya. "She did," he said smoothly. "She caused a scene. Threw her own necklace in there to get attention." A murmur rippled through the room. Maya felt the words hit her like ice water. For a split second, doubt crept in, not in herself, but in the world. Because she'd seen this before. Lies told confidently enough often became truth, especially when spoken by boys with last names that opened doors. Ethan's breath hitched. "That's not true." Tyson shot him a look sharp enough to warn him back into silence. Richard Hale didn't react immediately. He didn't shout. He didn't argue. He didn't even look at Tyson. Instead, he walked, slowly, purposefully. He stopped in front of Maya. She expected judgment, interrogation, maybe even disappointment. What she got was something else entirely. Richard looked at the necklace in her hand, still damp, still smeared with cafeteria grime. Then he looked at her eyes. "Is that necklace yours?" he asked quietly. "Yes," Maya said. Her voice didn't shake. "It belonged to my grandmother." Richard nodded once. "Did you throw it away?" "No," a beat. Then Richard turned to Ethan. "Son," he said gently, "what did you see?" Ethan swallowed. The entire room seemed to lean toward him. He felt fear clawing at his chest, fear of retaliation, of consequences, of becoming a bigger target than he already was. But then he looked at Maya, at the girl who had knelt beside him on cold stone, at the girl who had faced his bullies without flinching, at the girl who had reached into trash rather than bow her head. Ethan straightened. "Tyson took it from her bag," he said. "He showed it to us. Then he threw it in the trash." The words echoed. Logan muttered, "He's lying." Richard's head snapped toward him. "Did I ask you?" Richard said calmly. Logan shrank back. Richard turned his attention back to Tyson. Tyson forced a laugh. "Come on, Mr. Hale. You're really going to believe them? Everyone knows Ethan's." Richard raised a hand. Tyson stopped mid-sentence. The gesture wasn't aggressive. It was final. "You will not finish that sentence," Richard said softly. Tyson's mouth closed, "You see?" Richard continued, his voice carrying. "I didn't walk in here blind. I watched everything from outside. I saw my son on the ground. I saw this young woman step in when no one else did." Gasps broke out across the room. Tyson's face paled. Richard turned to the nearest teacher, a woman gripping her clipboard like a lifeline. "You," he said. "Did you see what happened?" The teacher hesitated. Her eyes flicked toward Tyson, toward the cafeteria, toward the weight of invisible influence. Then she looked at Richard Hale, at the man whose name was etched into hospitals, libraries, and city skylines. "Yes," she said quietly. "I saw it." The room buzzed. Richard nodded. "Thank you." Tyson took a step back. "This is ridiculous. You can't just—" "Oh, I can," Richard said. And that was when the air truly changed. By the end of the day, the story had spread beyond the school. Parents, staff, even local reporters had caught whispers of an incident involving a board member's son and a billionaire. Tyson and his friends were pulled out of class. Maya was called into the counselor's office. She sat in the chair across from a polished desk, her hands folded in her lap, the necklace cleaned now and resting against her collarbone. The counselor smiled tightly. "Maya, you need to understand how complicated this situation is." Maya met her gaze. "I understand exactly how simple it is. He stole from me. He bullied Ethan, and people let it happen." The counselor's lips pressed together. "There are families involved," she said carefully. "Influential ones." Maya's jaw set. "So is mine. We just don't have money." Silence. The door opened, Richard Hale stepped in. The counselor nearly jumped out of her chair. "Mr. Hale, save it," Richard said, not unkindly. "I'm here for her." Maya looked up, startled. "Me," Richard nodded. "You stood up for my son. That makes you family today." Counselor cleared her throat. "Mr. Hale, we were just discussing—" "I know exactly what you were discussing," Richard replied. "And I want to be very clear." He leaned forward slightly. "Any disciplinary action taken against Maya Daniels will be met with immediate legal action. Any retaliation from students or parents will be documented. And any attempt to sweep this under the rug will be very public." The counselor swallowed. "Understood." Richard turned to Maya. "Come on." Maya stood, heart pounding. As they walked into the hallway, she finally found her voice. "Why are you doing this?" Richard stopped. He knelt slightly, so they were eye level. "Because," he said, "the world already tried to teach my son he was weak. You taught him otherwise." Maya's throat burned, and because Richard added, "I grew up watching people with power protect the wrong things. I promised myself I'd be different." They walked. But as they turned the corner, Maya noticed something. A group of parents clustered near the entrance. Tyson's mother stood among them, her face tight, phone pressed to her ear, and when her eyes met Maya's, they weren't angry. They were calculating. That evening, Maya sat at her kitchen table, her mom across from her. Exhaustion etched into her face. "School called," her mom said quietly. "They said there was an incident." Maya nodded. "I didn't do anything wrong." Her mom reached across the table and took her hand. "I know." Maya blinked. "You do?" Her mom smiled faintly. "Baby, I raised you." "I know your heart." Relief flooded Maya, but it didn't last. Her mom's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Her face changed. "Who is it?" Maya asked. Her mom hesitated. "It's a lawyer. Says he represents the Creed family." Maya's stomach dropped. The phone buzzed again and again. Her mom exhaled slowly. "They're accusing you of harassment, of causing emotional distress." Maya's chest tightened. "They're lying." "I know," her mom said. "But lies can be loud." The knock at the door came sharp and sudden. Both of them froze. Another knock dashed harder. Maya stood. "I'll get it." Her mom grabbed her wrist. "Wait," but Maya had already reached the door. She opened it. Two men stood there, expensive suits. Cold smiles. One held a folder. "Miss Daniels?" the taller one asked. "Yes." He handed her the folder. "You've been served." Maya stared at the papers. Legal language, accusations, threats. Her hands trembled. The man leaned closer, voice low. "This could go very badly for you," he said. "If you don't apologize, publicly." Maya looked up at him. Fear pulsed through her, but beneath it, something stronger. Resolve. She shook her head. "I won't." The man's smile vanished. "We'll see." They turned and walked away. Maya closed the door slowly. Her mom wrapped her in a hug. Holding her tight, outside a black sedan idled across the street. Inside it, Richard Hale watched the house, his phone pressed to his ear. "Yes," he said quietly. "They've made their move." A pause. Then his jaw tightened. "Good," he said. "Now it's my turn." When the truth refuses to stay quiet, the video appeared at 217a.m. No announcement. No warning. Just a quiet upload from an anonymous account with a username that meant nothing and everything. At once: hold the line 17 by sunrise, it had exploded. Maya woke to her phone vibrating nonstop on the nightstand. At first, she thought it was her alarm malfunctioning. Then she saw the screen. Missed calls. Text messages. Notifications stacked on top of each other like dominoes. Her heart raced as she unlocked the phone. "Did you see the video?" "Maya, this is everywhere. You're on the news." Her fingers shook as she clicked the link someone had sent. The screen filled with shaky footage clearly recorded from a phone. Zoomed in from across the cafeteria, the angle was imperfect. The audio muffled. But the truth, unmistakable. There was Tyson, leaning back with that same smug grin. There was the necklace dangling from his fingers. There was Maya standing still, refusing to flinch. There was the moment he threw it, and the moment she reached into the trash and lifted it back up, not broken, not defeated, but burning with dignity. The caption beneath the video read, "This is what bullying looks like when adults look away." Ace covered her mouth. Tears streamed down her face, not from fear this time, but from something dangerously close to relief. The truth was out. At precisely 8 a.m., the Creed household was anything but calm. Tyson sat at the kitchen counter, pale and silent. His phone buzzing, just like Maya's only. The messages flooding his screen were very different. "You're finished. My parents saw the video. How could you do that? This is disgusting." His mother paced the room, heels clicking sharply against marble floors. "This is a disaster," she snapped, phone pressed to her ear. "Yes, I've seen it. Yes, it's spreading. No, an apology is not enough." She stopped pacing and fixed Tyson with a glare. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she demanded. Tyson clenched his jaw. "It's just a video." Her laugh was sharp and humorless. "It's evidence." His father entered the room, face rigid, eyes dark. "The board called," he said. "They want an emergency meeting." They can, his father interrupted. And they will. Tyson's confidence, so carefully built over years of privilege, began to crack. Because for the first time in his life, the system wasn't bending to protect him. It was turning to look directly at him. By mid-morning, Maya's school felt like a different place. Teachers stood straighter. Administrators whispered urgently in hallways. Students who had once laughed now avoided eye contact. Maya walked through the halls with her head high, though her chest felt tight. She wasn't celebrating. She was bracing. Ethan met her by her locker. He looked different, stronger, not because his body had changed, but because something inside him had. "They're talking about suspending him," Ethan said quietly. Maya nodded. "Good." Ethan hesitated. "People keep asking me questions. About the video? About you. And what do you tell them?" Maya asked. Ethan met her eyes. The truth. They shared a small, steady smile. But as they turned toward class, Maya felt it again, that prickle at the back of her neck. Someone was watching. Richard. Ellie stood in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the city. His phone on speaker, voices overlapped on the other end. Board members. Lawyers, advisors. "The public pressure is intense," someone said. "We need to distance the school from this immediately," another added. "And the Creed family will not be protected," Richard said calmly. The room went quiet. "This isn't about sides," he continued. "It's about accountability." Pause. Then one voice spoke carefully. "And the girl?" "Maya Daniels." Richard didn't hesitate. "She will be protected," he said. "Fully." When the call ended, Richard leaned back in his chair and exhaled. He had fought corporate battles worth billions. But this felt heavier, because this wasn't just about justice. It was about what kind of world his son would inherit. That afternoon, Maya was called into the principal's office again, but this time, it wasn't just her. Ethan sat beside her, and so did Richard Hale. Across from them sat the principal, 2 district officials, and after a tense Della Tyson and his parents. Tyson didn't look at Maya. His father stared straight ahead. His mother's eyes were sharp, calculating, still searching for leverage. The principal cleared his throat. "We are here to address recent events," he began. "After reviewing video evidence and witness statements, the school has concluded that serious violations occurred." Maya's pulse pounded. "Tyson Creed," the principal continued, "you are suspended effective immediately, pending further disciplinary review." Tyson's head snapped up. What? His mother stood? "This is outrageous." "We will appeal. You are welcome to," the district officials said evenly. "But the evidence is conclusive." Tyson's face burned. The principal turned to Maya. "Maya Daniels," he said, "the school formally apologizes to you for failing to protect you and your fellow student." The words felt surreal. "We will also be implementing immediate anti-bullying reforms," he added, "and offering counseling services to those affected." Maya nodded. Her hands clenched together. Then Richard stood. "There's one more thing," he said. All eyes turned to him. "My son Richard," continued, resting a hand on Ethan's shoulder, "was targeted not only because of cruelty, but because adults allowed it to happen." He looked directly at the administrators. "I am funding a new accessibility and inclusion program for this school," he said. "But I want something in return." The principal swallowed. "What's that?" Richard's gaze shifted to Maya. "I want her voice included," he said. "In the planning, in the oversight. Because courage like hers shouldn't just be applauded. It should be listened to." Maya's breath caught. Tyson's mother scoffed. "This is ridiculous. She's just a child." Richard turned to her slowly. "So was my son," he said, "and your child forgot that." Silence fell like a verdict. Outside the office, reporters waited, cameras, microphones, questions shouted over one another. Maya froze. This was bigger than she had imagined. Richard leaned toward her. "You don't have to say anything," he said gently. "Not unless you want to." Maya looked at Ethan, at his braces, at his steady gaze, at the quiet strength he had found. Then she stepped forward. The microphone surged. "Why did you stand up for him?" a reporter asked. Maya took a breath, because she said, "If we only speak up when it's safe, then it's never really safe for anyone." Her words rippled through the crowd, but from the edge of the scene, someone else watched, someone who hadn't spoken yet, someone who hadn't lost. Tyson stood near the school entrance, fists clenched, eyes burning not with shame, but with something darker. He turned to his mother, voice low. "This isn't over," he said. She didn't answer, but later that night, as Maya sat on her bed scrolling through messages of support and hate alike, a new notification appeared. No username, no profile picture, just a message. "You think you won? Wait until tomorrow." Maya's fingers tightened around the phone. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, and somewhere, a final move was being prepared, one that would test whether truth alone was enough, or if courage would demand one last sacrifice. Asterisk, holding the Lionetha. Storm broke just before dawn. Not the kind with rain and lightning, though. Thunder rolled somewhere in the distance, but the kind that tears through lives quietly. With documents and signatures and decisions made behind closed doors, Maya woke to her mom standing in the doorway, phone in hand, her face pale. "They're trying again," her mom said. Maya sat up. "Heart pounding, who?" "The school district," her mom replied. "They scheduled an emergency hearing this morning. Closed door, no press." Maya swung her legs over the bed. "About what?" Her mom swallowed. "About expelling you. They're calling it disruptive conduct and bringing negative attention to the school." For a moment, the world went silent. Expelled. The word echoed like a verdict already decided. Maya pressed her feet into the floor, grounding herself. "So, after everything, they're still protecting him?" Her mom shook her head. "Not him. The system." Maya laughed softly once. Bitter figures. Mom stepped closer. "Richard Hale called. He said he'll meet us there." Maya looked up. "He doesn't have to." "Yes, he does," her mom said firmly. Because some people don't step back once they see the truth. The district building was cold and glassy. Designed to feel neutral, but somehow managing to feel hostile. Inside the conference room, a long table stretched beneath harsh lights. On one side sat Maya, her mother, Richard Hale, and Ethan. On the other sat district officials, lawyers. And after a D lay the Creed family. Tyson didn't look defiant anymore. He looked desperate. His father sat rigid, jaw clenched. His mother's expression was carefully blank. The superintendent cleared his throat. This hearing is to determine whether Maya Daniels' actions violated district policy. Richard leaned back. Calm. And I assume he said, this hearing is also being recorded. The superintendent hesitated. Yes. Good, Richard replied. Then let's be honest. A lawyer on the district's side spoke first. Ms. Daniels' actions led to widespread media attention, protests outside the school, and reputational damage. Maya's chest tightened. Richard nodded slowly. So the problem is not the bullying, not the theft, not the discrimination. He leaned forward. The problem is that someone filmed it. Silence. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. That's not what we're saying. It's exactly what you're saying, Richard replied. And that's why this ends today. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed emails, internal messages, timestamps. The superintendent's face drained of color as he scanned the first page. What is this? He whispered. Richard's voice was steady. Correspondence between district officials and the Creed family discussing ways to contain fallout before the video went public. Tyson's mother shot to her feet. Those are private and illegal, Richard finished. Interference, retaliation, and discrimination. Maya's breath caught. Her mom squeezed her hand. Richard continued. If Maya Daniels is expelled, this room becomes the subject of a federal investigation. Today, the superintendent's hands trembled. That's not necessary. No, Richard agreed. It's not. If you do the right thing. A long pause followed. Then the superintendent exhaled, defeated. This hearing is adjourned, he said quietly. There will be no disciplinary action taken against Maya Daniels. Maya closed her eyes. Tears spilling over, her mom pulled her into a hug. Ethan let out a shaky breath he'd been holding for days. Across the table, Tyson stared at the surface, like it might swallow him whole. The consequences came swiftly after that. Tyson Creed was removed from the school. Permanently not, with a dramatic announcement, but with a quiet transfer that spoke louder than any suspension ever could. His father resigned from the board within a week. The district issued a public apology, and the video, it kept spreading, not as gossip but as a lesson. Weeks later, Maya stood on a stage in the school auditorium. The room was full. Students, parents, teachers, cameras, but this time, she didn't feel watched. She felt heard. Ethan stood in the front row, his sketchbook in his lap. On the open page was a drawing of a building-wide doors, ramps flowing seamlessly into its design. Sunlight pouring through glass walls. Maya smiled at him. Before stepping up to the microphone, she took a breath. When I stood up for Ethan, she began, I didn't think about consequences. I thought about who I wanted to be when I went home that day. The room was silent. I didn't know there would be a video, or lawyers, or meetings. I only knew this if I walked away, I'd be teaching myself that silence was safer than truth. She looked out at the crowd. It isn't. Applause rose slow at first, then powerful. After the assembly, Richard met Maya outside. I meant what I said, he told her. About including you. Maya frowned. Including me? In what? He smiled. The foundation. Scholarships. Advocacy programs. I want you at the table. Maya shook her head slightly. I don't want power. Richard nodded. Good, that's why you deserve it. That night, Maya sat on her bed. Her necklace warm against her skin. She turned it over between her fingers. Tracing the engraving, hold the line. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown. Number. She stiffened, then opened it. It was a picture, Ethan's sketch, with a caption, "One day. I'll build places where no one is left behind. Thank you for teaching me how to stand." Maya smiled through tears. Outside, the city hummed, perfect, loud, unfinished. But somewhere in it, a line had been drawn, and this time, it held.